CCFm 107.5. Changing lives for good.
It's a wonderful honor and privilege for us to say good morning and welcome to Michael Swain, Executive Director of Freedom of Religion South Africa, this Monday morning. Michael, thank you for joining us in studio.
Oh, thank you. It's wonderful to be on Breakfast with Friends and in your beautiful studio overlooking the sea. Wow. I will come again.
Please do.
That's good. You're always welcome, always welcome. So recently you represented 4SA in Vienna, Austria, to talk around and be part of a conference on parental rights. And the fact is that many parents take it for granted that they have the right and the responsibility to care for their well-being and best interests of their own children. But this understanding is increasingly under attack around the world as alternate views and ideologies gaining the government backing, the backing of various governments. So just in a nutshell, Michael, talk to us. What are parental rights? Where do they come from? And why are they so important?
Well, you're absolutely right. This is, I would say, one of the themes that 4SA is increasingly focusing on because parental rights are under attack. And parents need to know, I think, importantly, that parental rights are not granted by the state or by society, but they are inherent in the very nature of the family. And parental rights actually derive from natural law, obviously, where mother and father conceive a child. And that actually is so evident if you look at the natural, deep relationship between a mother and a baby. You can see it. So it is a natural right. It is a pre-existing right. It is not a political right. It is not granted by governments. And of course, it is essential because the family is the primary social unit where children are nurtured, where they're educated, socialized, and where they learn to become ultimately responsible citizens. So we have to, if we're going to produce healthy, let's say, responsible citizens and flourishing communities, ensure that the family is strengthened, not weakened, because these essential virtues will be lost if the family is weakened. And it would be wishful thinking to think that the state or anybody else could just simply take over those responsibilities. You know, children aren't widgets. They belong to their parents. They have that essential care in the nurturing bosom of their own family. So, yes, where family structure is weakened, then it leads, as we have seen, unfortunately, and do see, inevitably, there's going to be some form of societal breakdown. So fundamentally, parental rights are linked to the public good. And that is why it's so important that we actually uphold them and protect them and understand that we have them as parents. Because if we don't understand them, if we take them for granted, then we can quickly see them eroded.
That is quite something, Mr. Michael Swain. When it comes to religion, though, why are parental rights so important when it comes to religious freedom?
Well, beyond anything else, we all faith and traditions recognize that the family is more than just simply an environment where you produce good little citizens. The Bible has, for example, honor your father and your mother. So that actually shows that there is a sacred responsibility. There is a sacred element of parenting. And it's not just a social construct, but it's a vocation. It has divine purpose. It has, therefore, also divine authority. So we have to understand that the family is, of course, the first sphere of government, where every child is going to learn the basic skills and life skills to help them to do well in life, to be part of the broader community. And of course, very critically, parents can pass on their faith, their views, and their values to their own children. Otherwise, what happens is that some other intervention will come in place. If you don't raise your children according to your own faith and your own views and your own values, someone else is going to educate them with theirs.
Sure. You see, this is why we're having this conversation, because parental rights are so important. And as Michael said early on, it's God ordained. It's from the Bible. It's from that. Oh, it's amazing. So in terms of our current situation, what are some of the laws that protect and support parental rights, Michael?
Well, the good news is that parental rights are very strongly reinforced in international law and also in South African law. So though they're coming under attack, there is a very solid legal history, if you like. There's a legal bulwark that protects them. And of course, in our South African context, probably the most significant is in the Department of Basic Education's policy paper called the White Paper on Education and Training in a Democratic South Africa. And this says, and I'm going to quote from it, because again, it's important that people understand what it means and that they do take to heart what is said. It says parents, or obviously legal guardians, have the primary responsibility for the education of their children and the right to be consulted by state authorities with respect to the form that education should take. So it's not at all a situation whereby government decides what it wants to teach your children and you just have to basically drop them off at the school gate and that's the last you see of them until they come back spouting probably all sorts of nonsense that you never wanted. No, you have the right, you have an inalienable right. That's the word that is used. Inalienable means it is not state granted, it is God given. It is literally cannot be taken away from you. It is inviolable. It is pre-political to educate your children. And that includes, by the way, importantly, the cultural and the religious basis of your child's education. So you have the right to choose that. And that is why, of course, and we were on this already this year, back in February, March, why school governing bodies are so important. Because it's the school governing body that is the, if you like, the structure in the education system in each individual school that represents your rights as a parent. And to make sure, of course, that what your children are being taught, you know what it is, you know what it looks like, and you have a big say in your child's education through the school governing body.
That is quite some serious stuff. But why, though? I mean, what has been the sudden change, Michael? Why are parents' rights all of a sudden being eroded in South Africa?
Well, one of the things that is happening, and it's happening on multiple levels, is that there's this strange and bizarre, let's say, ideology which pushes everything into the matrix of there is always an oppressor and there's always an oppressed. And so what happens is that parents, unfortunately, in this matrix are seen as the oppressor. We are in a patriarchal society and the children are therefore the oppressed. And what is happening is that particularly activists are moving to say, well, then the state needs to take the part of the oppressed, i.e. the children. And therefore that means, of course, that parental rights should be limited because the state is now going to act in the best interests of the child. That's a fallacy, of course. I mean, it's fundamentally true that the best interests of a child is when they are literally being looked after, cared for, nurtured and raised by their own family. But we've heard the Department of Basic Education, and we know that the Department of Education is pushing, and we've talked about this on the show before, this early childhood education toolkit, which is really creating an entire culture of transgenderism in the classroom, which many parents, I would say the vast majority of parents, simply would not agree to or support. And of course, that will be deeply confusing to children. If you say to a child, you can't tell whether somebody's a boy or a girl just by looking at them, that's going to confuse a little 3, 4, 5-year-old. If you say we're not going to use he and she anymore, we're going to use they and them, that's also going to be deeply confusing to a child. So these are some of the things that are coming in, and they are literally undercutting parental rights. Parents wouldn't want those values to be passed on to their children. But of course, unfortunately, when the state does get involved in that and your rights are overridden, well, that's when you need to speak up. That's when you need to say something. That's why you need to engage with your school. That's why you need to get involved with your child's education. Find out what they're learning. Find out what's happening in their school context, because that's the way that you're going to protect them and uphold their rights.
Yeah, and also for Christian parents to step up and to say, we are going to serve on the school governing body. Go forward and put yourself forward to be a part of your child's education. It's just a few years that you're going to give, but it could have a long-lasting effect, not just on your child, but on all the children in that school. As we wrap up now, Michael, what is 4SA planning to do to help reinforce parental rights in South Africa?
Well, we think the best thing to do, of course, is to inform people, to help people to understand, and also to be practical about it. Because if you sit down and you say to, say, the typical school governing body, write up a policy of parental rights, they'll look at you with big eyes. So we are going to help with that. So what we're going to be working on is a parental rights charter that we're then going to circulate and we're going to make freely available at any school. It'll be simple to understand. It will set the rights out clearly, and any parent in that school will then have the opportunity to actually understand what their rights are and how they can basically enforce them. And we're going to be hopefully working together with other organizations that look after school governing bodies like FedSAS, for example, and others. So, the most important thing, as we often say, is to be informed, because ignorance is certainly not bliss. And if you don't know what's going on, then something's going to happen, you won't like it, and it's sometimes too late to find out after the fact. So stay involved, stay engaged, stay informed.
Absolutely brilliant. Michael, if people want to find out more details, or what are your email addresses and how can they get in contact with 4SA?
Well, we always say the best way is to go to our website,
Yeah.
which is www.forsa.org.za, forsa.org.za. And of course, we're on Facebook, Freedom of Religion SA. We have a YouTube channel. By the way, if you want to watch a more detailed video that we've done with our two attorneys speaking about this, then we've just put it up on our YouTube channel as well.
Brilliant.
So lots of ways to get involved. Sign up for our newsletter, get onto our WhatsApp group, and we will keep you informed for sure.
Absolutely brilliant. Like always. Hey, Jonathan.
Yeah.
Always insight.
Thank you so much, Mr. Michael Swain, Executive Director, Freedom of Religion, South Africa.
Thank you.